So yesterday I was giving you an overview of us starting to question yourself, myself, ourselves, and the role that the self plays in that. Because as I mentioned yesterday, I feel that the ego, what the Buddhists talk about, and people like Eckhart Tolle and Wayne Dwyer and the Dalai Lama and all the and many more, talk about how the ego wedges its way in and fractures the personality and breaks us away from ourselves, which makes us feel like we're not good enough, makes us feel like I'm not enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not fill in the gap, I need to be something other than what I am in order to be loved. And it's like, how do we reconnect the one, the my, to the self? Because the self is actually all-encompassing. It's the thing that drives our every behavior. It's the reason that we're actually here. And I want to talk about the S. I'm going to break it down into SELF. And today the S stands for source energy. So as I was mentioning, yesterday, people call this different things. So I refer to it as source energy, as quantum field, but it can be God, it can be Buddha, it can be, Krishna, it can be, I don't know, whatever your religion is, okay? It's a label that we attach to the energetic form that is something bigger than us, a force for good, a force for God, I say, and it doesn't have to be God. That is, it's not about the religion. It's about the vastness of what is more than us, that lives outside of us, yet is in us, and is in yet everything around us. So that source energy, in the quantum terms, which really cemented it for me, because I had quite a religious kind of background, with my father taking us to church every Saturday or Sunday, and it was Catholic, but I had quite a bit of a disconnect, if I'm honest, because I noticed how people behaved outside of the church compared to how the preachings and the teachings that we were being told. The behavior that should have overflowed into their everyday life did not. And I found that quite, if I'm honest, sorry to say, I found that hypocritical and false. And I also had a challenge with some, not necessarily, not in our church particularly, but some religions can be quite in your face. And I struggled with that. If it's so great, why are you pushing it on me? And I've got this in NLP with my coaching. We talk about map and position, where I have my views of the world, but I'm going to force my view on you, and I'm going to insist that you do things like I want you to do them. Now that's just about control, isn't it? It's got nothing to do with what's good for the person. They might wave it in the banner of, this is good for you, so that's why I'm making you do that. And again, you're still being a bully, because if it's that good, then they'll be able to adopt it themselves. The person will know. They'll be able to tune in and go, do you know what, I'm okay with that. Yes, that does work with me. Okay, so that map and position, I don't care if it comes from the powers that be that are in charge running countries, whether it's from schools, whether it's from religions, I don't care. That whole map and position, it could be your partner in your relationship, it could be from friends. Map and position to me is immediately where I would love to have it, where we can put our walls up. You don't have to be aggressive about it. You just go, no thank you, that does not work for me. That's your map of the world, your shoes, your path, your way, but these are my shoes, my path, and I'm going to do this my way. And I respectfully ask that you stay on your path and you don't come onto mine. If it doesn't work for you, I want us to get to a space where we can say, look, this doesn't work for me, I'm not going to do it, and everybody's okay with it. That's how I would like the world to be, Now, that whole thing with self, you see, if we look at source energy, there's two things I want to bring up. One is that in the quantum physics, in the years ago, what they actually found was, not years ago, it was quite recent actually, that it was believed that when you looked into a microscope, and I have mentioned this in some of my other videos before, a couple of times I think, on my Vicky Jane channel, but when you look into a microscope and you looked at the atoms and you go further in and further in, you'll see that there's vibrational atoms and more vibrational atoms, and eventually it got to a point where they couldn't see it anymore. It just was like a black hole, okay? And then what they discovered was that they have now discovered in quantum physics is that originally the atom would disappear, and there was a belief system that, you know, atoms would come back in through this black hole, but they always thought it was a different atom. And what they've subsequently discovered is that that energetic little atom actually goes out and it comes back in, and it's exactly the same atom. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that energy doesn't die. Our source energy that lives within us, our self, which is it begins with the S for a reason. It stems from source. Okay, my self, the self came before the my. the self came before the one self. The self came before yourself. The self came before ourselves. The self was there before, because the self is source. The S is the start of the word self. And that source energy is that vibrational quantum field, whatever label you want to call it, that is the reason for us being here today. It's, if you look at now, with me moving my hands and me talking and whatever, if you, on a physical level, if you were to measure it, these energetic vibrational pulses that go from one synapse to another. And my brain, which is the command center, sends information down these synapses to say, move your arms, have this thought, move your legs, say these words. When the energy draws out, then the body passes, which is what I was talking about yesterday. So there is more source energy within ourselves and outside of ourselves. Like even I'm sitting in this park, right, down by the river, and there are trees and there are mountains and there's lake, but there's this massive blue sky. There's more sky than there is tree or grass or lake or me. And part of that energetic force, that self, that source, is in me. It's also in the tree. It's also in the grass. It's also in the lake. Do you see what I'm getting? So we are actually connected by the source. So I often say, you know, I have my little heart that I do, you know, from my heart to yours. Now, if you look at what's between me and the heart, okay, it's a hole. But what's in that hole, okay, is energy. And that energy is what connects me to you. So we're still connected. Even though it's through a device, we're still connected. I'm connected to everything that's around me because of the quantum field, the air. And in that is an energetic field. Like my daughter was saying to me the other day, she said, oh, Mum, come and have a look at this. And it had been snowing. And it was cold, and the car had been turned on, and the sun had come out and had melted stuff, and you could see the heat of the vapors off the top of the car coming off from you know, the ice that was melting and now turning into heat because everything was warming up. And in Africa, I was explaining to her, I said, you know, those heat waves, when you're driving, you can actually see they are up to your waist sometimes, because that heat, you can actually see things starting to wobble and wave like that. Now that is energy, you know, that is, you can't see it. by the naked eye, if you weren't actively looking for it, you probably wouldn't really notice it. But this is the stuff that is more connecting to us than anything else. There's more of the source than there is of us. There is more of the no thing than there is a something. So tapping that source. So just have a think about it today. Like, just go reverse engineer it. Go, well, you know, we think of ourselves as so separate, but we're not really, because we're connected through this invisible field. And being aware of that, and it's just like, that energy is everywhere, whether we're here or not. When the body passes, the energy leaves and it goes back up into the invisible. But we're still part of the invisible. And this is one of the things I often say to people that struggle with people who have passed. They have passed, they have left the body, but they're still with us because they're still in the energy field. So, you know, it's just looking from a different perspective and reconnecting ourselves with that self. Don't fracture ourselves off. Don't split it, because that's where the healing needs to begin. Because when you start splitting yourself off like that, all psychology is all about, you look at multi-personality disorders and schizophrenia and trauma that's happened. It's because it's split off parts of our personality in a negative way, and it's how do we reconsolidate? And this is one of the ways. This is recognizing that there's more to us than just this physical form, and that we can tap this invisible force and use it, because this is the force that creates worlds. If it can create worlds, it can do anything, right? Okay, including healing you if you need it, you know, but reconsolidating yourself. So I really hope you found that useful. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the E part of self. Okay, your shoes, your path, your way. Namaste.